This is the Team Objection podcast for December 3rd, 2020, episode 462. And let me tell you, the intro is a godsend sometimes because it allowed me the time to pull up the planner and figure out what the hell episode number this was. I mean, the date was easy enough because I can just look at what the date is and add to, but then I was like, oh God, I have no idea what number. Oh God, oh God, oh please, oh God.
I could have amped for you.
Could you?
Yeah.
Do it now.
I have a person who recently, I'm pretty forgiving with these. They get them all wrong, but they said, you really, like, good point. You really hit the pony on the head. And I couldn't do it anymore. And I had a meltdown because if you say nip in the butt, I can forgive that. Yeah, it's close enough.
Sure.
Hit the pony on the head? What did you... What?
There's a lot of other malapropisms where it's like, hit the pony in the head doesn't make any sense. We'll get back to it. But like nip in the butt, it's close enough to the original. Like the words are close and it makes sense.
It could kind of make sense.
Somebody could like bite you in the ass.
Right.
So you're like, okay, like I can see how somebody could pick that up. It's wrong, but like that's easy to... Where did you get pony in the head? Who introduced that lexicon to you?
And if you even think like pony is not even like... Pony up, maybe you can say, is like a... What's an idiom that even involves pony? Where did you get pony from?
Irregardless, Sean, this is a moot point because we're talking about other things in this podcast.
And like there's for all intensive purposes, yeah. I can almost even understand that one.
Yeah.
For all your purposes that you're working really hard on, I understand.
Yeah, and again, it's close to the original, and you can make sense of it. And when somebody heard it wrong, you go, okay, yeah. There's no world in which you heard something that turned into pony.
Hit the pony on the head. I was like, yeah, good job. You really punched the horse in the face with that one. It's
like I wonder if anyone ever spends... Maybe I'm the weird one that spends time thinking about what phrases actually mean sometimes. Like, when you say that, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's okay, that makes sense. You're hitting a nail. It's on the head. That's how it goes into the wood. Okay, this makes sense. It's a saying. You hit the pony on the head. It's like, what'd the pony do to you?
That's all I'm saying.
And I've even heard you hit the hammer on the head, which is kind of stupid. But again, you can sort of twist it around to where you go, okay, like I can see where you would have picked that up incorrectly. I get where you're coming from. Doesn't really happen with pony.
It's even little things like kerfunkel. Okay, kerfunkel, while close to kerfuffle, is not what it is. It's its own thing. You're just making stuff up. And I'm like, if you don't know how to use them, stop using them more than anyone else does.
I kind of subscribe to that. If I'm not entirely sure what it means, I don't use it.
Kerfuffle? It might even be fluffle.
Kerfuffle, I think.
The point is, I don't use that.
I don't even know exactly what it's to be used in.
Kerfunkel is the one. That's not a thing.
No. Kerfuffle's a thing.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm like. That's what I think you're trying to go for.
I use that word occasionally, just because it's fun to use words other than like fight, or for any kind of weird situation. Brouhaha is a fun word.
Yeah,
but I know words, so I don't worry about putting myself out there. I mean, occasionally I use a word wrong, but one of my best skills, if I'm going to be like, pat myself on the back, is I can use a word in a sentence without truly knowing the definition, and I look back on what I used it in context, and it's right, and I'm like, how do I do that?
Most of the time, I can do that, but every once in a while, if I use it too many degrees from like where I originally heard it, I actually end up getting it wrong because it like works for. So I wish I had an example of what I'm telling you, but like it worked in the first context, but in another similar context, it no longer works anymore. And I'm like, that's why you actually reading is great, but you probably need to look up the words at some point too.
I remember last thought on this. I remember in high school learning, you learn about synonyms and how words were, what other words you could use in a sentence. And one of our vocabulary words was charlatan. And this synonym for it was quack. And that just, I don't know, for some reason that always cracked me up.
Ducks fly together.
How is that truly a synonym?
Well, because like a charlatan's someone who's a fake. And so a quack, like a fake doctor is a quack.
Yeah, I guess.
I thought it was cool when I learned quixotic, because I was like, that's a weird word. Does that exist for Scrabble? What's the point of that word? And then, of course, it's Don Quixote.
Yeah.
But I didn't know about Don Quixote because it was like high school when I learned. So I was like, oh, that's actually based on something. I thought it was just like a weird word, like, quiz, quixotic, like it's not that far. No, it's actually based on something. Cool.
Gift horse in the mouth is like a thing that has like actual historical context.
Gift pony in the head.
Without it, you would not really know what that's about.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush is like my favorite of those, by the way, just to throw it out there. Because I think it's a philosophy that I really live by, too.
Yeah, you know what you've got as opposed to what you could have over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But some people think that means that you get twice as much from the bush. Like it's guaranteed. Because that's the way it can read if you don't know what that's talking about. You'd be like,
well, that's a stupid thought.
I have a bird in my hand, but I can get those two in the bush. So forget the bird in the hand.
Yeah.
That could even be a boat.
It's like, well, the bird, the bird in the hand is probably going to be 0 in the bush, but that's not how we say that.
Yeah.
This is not
Talk
what we're
about
talking
the Suns.
show.
Did you have time to get the date now? Did I vamp?
Yeah, you did. You did a good
Yes.
job.
Yes.
It's my fault. I opened the door to this, and I could have vamped myself. I could have talked about my tire being slashed, but I don't need to do that.
Well, it was great. You didn't even need the vamping.
No.
It did it anyways.
Now we'll just let people wonder what that's about. You guys know. The two of you know, but they don't know.
We haven't even got to talk about Deal or No Deal yet, which I think is a huge oversight. But
That's true.
today's not the time for
We're
that.
going to have a game show recap at some point. We can do it.
Today is the day for the Suns.
We could time capsule game. We could time capsule Deal or No Deal
God,
at some
that's
point.
really sad that we can already do that.
Like, think about Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. That was happening like around 9/11. We talked about pre-2000. Well, it's going to be 2021 here in about a month.
God.
So if we go 20 years in the past, then all of a sudden 2001 starts becoming fair game, and you just start feeling really old, and I'm sorry, because it hurts me too. It really does. Anyway.
Kids have graduated high school that were born in 2001 now. Like, kids were born after September 11th and are graduating high school this year.
Speaking of things that started in 2001, Chris Paul, no, I'm just kidding. It was a little after that. But he's getting old. It was like 2006, I think he was drafted. 5? Okay.
Devin Booker was a young boy watching Chris Paul play basketball, looking up to him.
He was 9 years old playing. 9 years old, and Chris Paul got drafted. Now they're on the same team.
Mm-hmm. By the way, one last aside. I do have another show planned for between now and Christmas. There won't be a show the week of Christmas. That's like 3 weeks out. But probably the one before that, I have a tournament-style bracket of Christmas songs that we're going to fight to the death on.
We can't have Maisie invited to that one. She's going to vote against all of them.
Right, she'll just vote them all off.
There is no winner.
But if I invite my wife, then if I invite Courtney, she'll vote for all of them. So it'll just be a wash.
Right. We can have a 5-person panel in which only 3 of them vote, and then we'll still only have 2-1 majority, so it's fine.
Or we could invite neither of them since they equalize each other anyway.
Why would you even vote for president then?
Every Christmas song is trash. Thank you for your viewpoints. You can go now. The next 45 minutes do not need your care and attention. We mentioned before the break for Thanksgiving that we were going to talk about the offseason in the NBA when we came back, and sure enough, the offseason has already come and gone. They were doing the first media for the start of training camps today. I watched an hour-long sit-down with Monty and Mikal Bridges and just kind of watched it just to see. Wasn't a ton that came out of it. There was a few interesting answers. They're both decent talkers, but I was more just because I was ravenously hungry for anything that had to do with the Suns because all of a sudden they're going to be good. How good? We'll get to. But I don't think there's any question that they're going to be good. And that is super exciting. You've heard us talk for almost a decade itself about how bad this team has been. They've been terrible almost the entire show's existence. Mm-hmm. So obviously all 3 of us are extremely jacked up for the fact that they're going to be at least good this year.
When we started the show, they were coming off of a pretty successful playoff run. Mm-hmm. Actually, really close to that. And we probably thought at some point we could talk about, they'll be good again. We did talk about Vince Carter.
Mm-hmm.
And it never happened. If you were if you were listening to the first episodes and we're waiting until now, you're still waiting for us to finally deliver on that promise.
I gotta say, in hearing reading about some of the press conference stuff with Monty today, they asked Monty what his expectation of Devin Booker was this year.
Mm-hmm.
All NBA and possible MVP candidate. I'm like, fuck yeah! I'm gonna run through a brick wall right now. I'm so pumped up.
Yeah, and to be fair, that wasn't his expectation. The question was sort of framed like that, but also, what do you want to see? And that's how he framed it. I want to see Devin become an all NBA player and an MVP candidate, but they're still close to being one and the same. Yeah. He also talked about wanting to win a championship, not predicting or guaranteeing, just the idea that it's such a dumb answer, but it's like, what's our goal? Well, our goal is to win the title. What else do you expect us to answer?
Well, James Jones is saying that too. Like he wants fans having that expectation.
And Bridges said it as well. So, I mean, everybody seems to be in lockstep on that, which is no more of this, we're in an asset collecting mode and we're just going to, try and put out the best product we can. And no more of that bullshit. Those days are gone. Even if they fail to be good this season, it doesn't matter. They were trying to be, which is a stark difference from the entire Ryan McDonough era.
Mm-hmm.
If
Chris Paul breaks his leg like in the game 1 and we suck again, then that's too bad. But like it was there. We were having some kind of faith in the front office is like this new cultural thing that's really nice to be able to say.
They're saying what they're supposed to say and also not saying anything. No one had a clue who the hell the Suns were going to draft. Nobody. It came out of left field. And what's funny is that people rip on their draft picks because of that. Nobody had a clue about our signings. Everyone was kind of freaking out on the first day of free agency where it's like, why haven't the Suns signed anybody? Oh no, who are they going to sign? And then we had a really solid, smart signing period, I think.
And the Chris Paul trade should have come out of nowhere, but an unlikely source happened to pick up on that days in advance because the usual ones like Woj and Shams had nothing on that until that other person on Twitter happened to post about it out of nowhere, and then it started picking up steam from there and turned out to be true. But they keep things under wraps, which I just never understood. I know it's easy to shit on the past now, but like even at the time, it was like, why would you talk about your own deals and undermine your own trade leverage or free agency signings or whatever the case might be? Like, why would you put that out there? What good does it do?
A lot of times, I think with free agency, it's always the agents that put that stuff out there because they want to like get the word out. Like, hey, he's gonna go for this much. Who's gonna bid it up? That type of thing. But trades, I don't understand that.
In the modern NBA, I don't even know if that's true anymore. I think it absolutely used to be, but now you basically fall into one of three spots. You're either a max player, a mid-level player, or a league minimum player because you're a rookie or whatever. So like there's a handful of free agents that can definitely sneak a couple million extra out of somebody, but for the most part, all the big players are getting the absolute max every time, no matter which team is the one offering it. The minimum salary guys are there until they become off the rookie deals, and then the guys in the middle are just left to fight over whatever cap space is left. In the case of this offseason, a lot of crappy players got a lot of money from out of nowhere, which is one of the reasons I'm really happy with our offseason was that we didn't waste money on mediocre players.
You guys didn't want to sign Gordon Hayward for beyond the max?
$120 million?
I mean, that one, even so, like, that one's, it seems crazy. I mean, at least he should be he's only 29, so at least he's got some years left. His foot fell off, but if he can recover from that, then he should be pretty good.
But like, I read a thing that was like, and it was a very good point of, that's overpaying even how he was.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if he never, and he probably never again is going to be that good. Let's hope. I mean, I really hope for the best. That sucks for him. It's the worst. Even if he attains that level, he would have to surpass it to be worth that money. And I mean, good luck to him, but it's extremely unlikely.
I feel bad for him, but he can go cry into his $250 million that he's made over the past 10 years. So
yeah. It's just weird, by the way, real quick before we get off that topic, that they just got off of Nick Batum's contract.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Hayward's that bad or going to be that much of an albatross. It's just you finally got off of that money in Bismack Biyombo, and now you immediately throw it at Gordon Hayward.
Michael Jordan making it rain, man.
That's my computer making noises. Hold on, I'll fix it.
Yeah, I think it's so funny with the draft pick, though, of saying it's a bad draft pick and you could have just traded down.
I'm so sick of that.
As though you know for a fact where they're going to go, and there's no chance that you trade down and then someone else takes your pick. Mm-hmm. Now you're super stuck. Now it's much worse than if you had just waited or some other thing.
Nah.
I get it, and it's not necessarily maximizing the deal, but it is getting the sure thing. You're also not risking very much by doing it this way.
The most frustrating thing is, how do you know they didn't try? Especially because everything around the organization now is so tight-lipped. They waited to make the pick until the last possible minute. How do you know they weren't trying to reach out to teams just to see, hey, maybe somebody who's crazy about Halliburton and he's fallen this far might want to move up a couple spots and make sure they secure him. To me, the idea that they didn't try is laughable. Maybe they didn't try hard enough. We don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to say that they just did everything possible and they didn't do anything wrong, but it's just, just trade it for 14. Well, what if 14 doesn't want the pick? Well, you just trade it for 14. It's all this trade machine bullshit. It's like, well, I plugged it in there and it worked, therefore it's a valid deal. And it's like, yeah, but it would never happen.
It's just hard to feel a lot of outrage from me on draft night. Now, unless it's like there's a consensus clear number one and you choose someone just completely bananas. But you're never going to know until you see their career. I mean, what good or bad, you have to see them play these days. And
well, we got so much equity out of Cam Johnson. Like that pick got ripped on when it happened last year. And now it's like, oh, that was a pretty good pick. Well, I guess we'll see what happens with Jalen Smith now. And actually, what's funny is you go back and look at number 6 for Dario and the number 6 pick, who turned out to be Jarrett Culver, for Dario Saric and Cam Johnson. It's like, oh yeah, I'd make that trade every day of the week easily.
Yeah. Yep. Did we, this is a tangent, but did we miss out on anyone huge with the Cam Johnson pick?
I don't think so.
There was, I can't see. It's not even this important. I can't remember who it was. There was a guy that the Grizzlies ended up getting, Brandon Clark, who I liked a lot and I thought would be a decent power forward for us. But we got Dario out of it, so
yeah, we re-signed Dario to now to move this back to the Suns a bit. That was huge for me, and it sounds like he is kind of accepting the 6-man role.
I hope so.
I hope that it's been kind of rumored, but I hope that's the case because I think it's where he really thrives. I think he was struggling this year, really. And he looked like a different player in the bubble. And I don't know if that was just he had time to work out. He had time to work on whatever. I think it's probably just coming out. You're playing against a little bit less caliber players when you're on the second unit. And I think he just thrives in that role.
And I don't know. He's got the size. He was tough in the bubble. It was great.
And he started that really before the bubble. It took it to another level in the bubble. Like he was even better there, but really post mid-January, he was on a different level. So it just extended into that and improved. But yeah, there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. The bubble is certainly a cautionary tale. People are always wondering if it's a fluke or not. There are reasons why it was a little suspect, but it's also somewhat overblown. It's like every team was missing players. It's like, I don't give a fuck if the Clippers were missing Montrezl Harrell. They have Paul George. They have Kawhi Leonard because we were missing Kelly Oubre. We were missing Aaron Baines. So, let's shut the fuck up about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. The bubble taught us some lessons. It taught us some interesting things about Monty's system and the players that fit in it, of which I don't think Kelly Oubre was one of them. And now we're surrounded then with a roster of players that make sense. So, last episode, we talked about the Chris Paul trade, and that was the biggest cornerstone of everything that's happened. But since then, we had the draft, which we've touched on, and then free agency. To me, one of the best free agent offseason signings was Jay Crowder.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know it's hard for you to say.
Unbelievable.
I know that.
Yeah.
Because I feel the same way.
Although, did you hear his interview today?
No.
He was on the radio with Gambo and whoever the fuck's on with Gambo. I don't listen to
Dave
Phoenix media.
Burnsy. How do
there
you
you go. That's the one.
I'm the Phoenix guy.
And you should go check out the quotes from it if you get the chance. But for the listeners who probably won't do that, it was essentially just, he signed here over Dallas and a couple other places for less money because he liked the fit and he wanted to help us make the playoffs. So I'm not saying that undoes all the sins and all the shit talking to Devin Booker in the 70-point game, blah, blah, blah. But it's at least a really good first introduction.
He was on a call with Booker and Chris Paul the day after he got signed too. So any concerns that there was bad blood, which honestly I didn't really have a lot because they're professionals and whatever, but it was pretty quickly alleviated.
Look at this team of hyper-competitive, versatile athletes we have.
Defenders.
Mm-hmm. One of the stat I heard is essentially, if you break it down, I was reading something on the Arizona Sports website that the Suns writer had talked about. If DeAndre Ayton can hit, it kind of does expand his range, and Jay Crowder is more Miami shooting three-pointer Jay Crowder, the Suns essentially have 13 players that shot better than 32% from three.
Yep.
13 players on their roster.
Yeah, and there's some asterisks, like you said. Ayton is tiniest sample size of his life, and Smith was his college numbers, and blah blah blah. But the fact remains, everybody in the roster can shoot the three.
Mm-hmm.
So that's as far as this 0.5 idea and pace and space and all that jazz, everybody fits, and there's no question. Even though Rubio shot the best numbers of his life from three last year, Chris Paul's a better shooter than he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, by a lot. In every way. 3-pointer, 2-pointer.
Off the dribble.
At the rim.
That's the biggest thing to me.
Yeah. Especially off the dribble. And he's another guy who can create his own shot.
Yep.
which Rubio,
No.
by proxy only of his superior passing ability, not to Chris Paul, just in general, he could juke defenders and get to the rim. But Chris Paul can get to the rim. He can shoot it from the mid-range. He can shoot the three. Like, there's no issues with him creating his own shot, especially at the end of the shot clock.
Yeah. There was talk as well in that same article I was reading. Is this the best Suns backcourt of all time at one time?
No.
Oh, I mean, no. But,
Just
No.
wait,
single season.
backcourt.
No.
I mean,
No.
when you compare some of other backcourts, I mean, for 1 and 2, I mean,
No.
It-
Prime KJ Marley stomps the shit out of this because Chris Paul's not prime Chris Paul. Prime Chris Paul, absolutely.
I was about to say, if you had prime Chris Paul and then Devin Booker, who's still ascending, hopefully,
mhm.
I think you'd start to have the conversation.
But there's already a better version of top 15 guard with aging Hall of Fame, or should be Hall of Fame point guard, and a better other option on the roster, and that was when Kidd, Nash, and KJ were all on the team at the same time.
Fair.
Now, Nash was not Nash yet, and KJ was just barely hanging on through the litany of injuries he had near the end of his career. But still, yeah, that's...
It's a damn good backcourt, though.
It
And-
absolutely
But I
is.
like that even though I disagree, I'm glad we can even kind of have the
The fact that it's a
consideration.
thought,
Let's
yeah.
talk about
And
it. Yeah.
it could be the best backcourt in the West. I mean, we don't know what the hell's going on with Houston, and I don't like Westbrook. Klay Thompson's out for the year, so the first place you'd go is Golden State, but I'm not exactly impressed by their backcourt when it's Steph and question mark. So, like, who's better? I guess just because Lillard's so good, but I'm not that impressed by CJ McCollum. So, who's better? At the very least, the Suns are right there.
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
To be able to say we're the best at anything has been really, really rare over the last 10 years. So I'll take what we can get.
I mean, it's going to be less pressure on DeAndre. Added, with the addition of someone who can get him the ball better. So, like, both of those things combined, I hope to see a career year from him, or a full year would also be nice. But yeah. The Jay Crowder 4, right? He's
Yeah.
the 4, and then
Yeah,
Bridges
he'll
is the 3. So that is a nightmare. I mean, that's a pretty nightmare defensive unit. It's not the Clippers.
But what it does is it makes up for some of Booker's, perceived deficiencies on defense. I mean, we have a lot of good defenders in that lineup. I mean, Ayton has come strides from his rookie year and should theoretically only improve. So, if you kind of have one weak link in a defensive setup like that with really good defenders all around him, it should be just fine. And then on the offensive side of the ball, everybody on the floor, sans Ayton, can step out and hit threes. So that just opens up the middle for Ayton, you'd figure.
Well, so the other thing I like is we also have a starting 5. So as a Suns fan, getting a solid starting 5, hard enough to begin with there. We have a solid starting 5 and like a legitimately great second unit. Cam Johnson, who you could almost make an argument to continue to be a starter.
Mhm.
He shouldn't be, but he played great in that role.
If Cam Johnson's starting, it's because he blew them away in camp.
Yeah.
I do think there's the outside possibility he could supplant probably Crowder, but I don't think it's going to happen.
He'd better
That's a good sign.
put on some muscle, I think, to play the 4.
Yeah, but I think we might be surprised by him when he comes back.
I
That's
hope
one of
so.
my two big keys, by the way. You were starting to talk about the bench. I'll get back to it. One of the two big keys for me is the roster's better on the backside, and Booker, Ayton, Bridges, Johnson are all on the right side of 24.
Yep.
So, like, what if two of them gets half a step better than they already are?
Which I really hope from Bridges.
Which is just
That's my big hope.
that's
there.
not even like optimistic. I think all 4 of them should probably improve. But let's just say 2 of them like take a mini jump.
Mhm.
That's already better than what we had last year. In addition to Chris Paul being better than Ricky Rubio, in addition to Jay Crowder being better than Kelly Oubre Jr., and then the backside of the rotation fleshes out that bench you mentioned. To me, that was the biggest move. I know Chris Paul is the headliner, and rightfully so, but I'm much more excited about the fact that we have competent NBA players on the backside of the rotation, especially in a season where we're likely to have people miss time because of COVID or injuries or all of the above or lockdowns, God forbid. Langston Galloway, Etwan Moore.
Yep.
Those are the type of guys that I am the most excited about just because it means I don't have to see Elia Kobo, even on a team that's good. We have Cam Payne coming back. By all accounts, Bridges said at the very end of the call today, Payne's been working his ass off in the offseason. Like, even though he's now got an NBA contract locked up through next year, he's not taking anything for granted for the sound of it. That makes me happy.
I mean, what do we need? If campaign is 75 to 80% of what he was in the bubble, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, he was incredible in the bubble. I mean, as a backup point guard, he was. I thought he was incredible.
I mean, he hit shots that he had really no business making, and consistently, like
Yes.
4 in a row.
Yeah.
I was like, what is happening right now?
Well, and that's the same thing with Javon Carter as well. I mean, Javon Carter was lights out shooting from the bubble, and I don't know how much of that you can attribute to the empty gym, the setting. I don't know. I don't know what caused it, because shooting numbers all across the league were up in the bubble. But for the majority of the season, it seems like there's not going to be fans in the crowd, in the stands this year. So I wonder if that type of thing continues.
Could be.
I don't know.
The weirdest thing about the bubble is that in addition to the no fans, it was the same environment in each of the gyms, like the same surroundings. So basically, you were shooting a corner three the same way. Now maybe the rims are slightly different, or anything. You know, there's got to be something subtle there, but you could see that kind of repeat performance. Yeah.
Yep. But I mean, if you look down the bench lineup, essentially, the back five, it's hard to tell who that second unit really is going to be, because you've got Campaign, you got Javon Carter, who's, I think, just kind of that, the nickname of Bulldog. He's a bulldog on defense type of thing. Cam, Dario, and maybe Jalen Smith out there. I mean, that sounds like a hell of a second five.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even talk about E'Twaun Moore and Langston Galloway.
Yeah, or Damian Jones.
Exactly. I mean, every time this offseason there was some sort of like the sun sign, I'm like, damn, all right, I like that. Like, none of them were like, really? We did that? Or who's that? All of them were like, yes.
Wasn't it amazing how quickly the perception on that turned? Because for the first 24 hours of free agency, when the Suns did nothing, our fans were starting to freak out. Our fans were freaking out. And I get it to a certain extent. It's, again, we've labored on the point, but it's been a decade of misery except for that 148-win season, and even then we didn't make the playoffs. So I understand people are overly eager for a winning team, but it's like, can we calm the fuck down, please? Because some of the deals that did happen on day one were awful.
Jeremy Grant.
Yeah, Jeremy Grant was somebody we talked about maybe wanting on this team. Not for $20 million per. Hell no.
Gallinari, I would have loved him on the team. Not for $24 million?
Yeah, exactly.
I think, is that what he signed for? $24 million a year, something like that?
3 years, $71 million? Is that right?
I can't remember, but it was a lot. It was more than I wanted to spend.
A bunch of money. And again, teams like Atlanta and Charlotte have to do that if they want to be players in free agency. I don't want to criticize those too much. They're going to have to pay a surcharge for being in their smaller markets, but I wouldn't want those deals.
Well, there's a point, and I wanted to touch on it before I forgot. The versatility, to kind of Dave's point, it's almost like, what does the second unit even look like? We have so many capable players. It's no longer just cut and dry. And I was reading an article where they kind of talked about it allows us sort of a Swiss Army knife approach where Monty Williams can say, okay, we're in a specific situation in this game. I want to go to, for example, my energy guy in Carter. Or maybe like the situation is different, so he wants to go with one of the other players, but it grants him that versatility and flexibility in how he approaches every game. Yeah. That's awesome.
With the caveat that pretty much everybody you go to can hit a three if needed.
Yeah, exactly.
Which you can't have too much in today's game.
Which is the big difference between the Clippers, whose defense is really good. You mentioned them earlier, and us. Now, I'm not saying we're better than the Clippers, but they had those problems in the playoffs last year, and they got exposed for it in the Denver series because they had at times one or two people on the floor who couldn't shoot a lick. And no, I don't think Pat Beverly can shoot, even shooting like wide open all the time. He made like 33% from three last year. And obviously Montrezl Harrell can't shoot. He's a good scorer around the basket, but he can't shoot threes. So they had times where their spacing was compromised. That won't be a problem with this team. Ever.
No, so Chris, you have pulled up the in and out for every team.
Yeah.
This is exciting, and this is kind of how there's a lot of moves. I'd love COVID's terrible, it sucks, but if there's a silver lining, this has been awesome. We have the draft, then we have the offseason. It's over. Now we're at training camp.
And after the success of the bubble, and then ultimately the championship being done, we have a new season starting.
Yeah.
In I texted you guys. The first preseason game is in like 10 days. By the time this airs, it's like 8.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous in a good way. I wouldn't want this to be the way it is every year, I don't think. It's a little too much too quick. But given what it had to be, boy, is it exciting. Especially because we're players in it. I don't know if I'd be this excited if we were just doing another laborious offseason where we didn't do jack,
Yeah.
we might have the schedule hasn't come out yet, which I think is crazy considering it starts in 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But it's pretty likely the Suns are going to get one of the Christmas Day games.
I think I saw a leaked schedule from Woj today, and we did not. If the leak is true. It was on Woj's official account, and we were not one of the 10 teams.
That's too bad. Well,
but, anyways. All right, let's go top to bottom in the West real quick. Because we don't need to do a lot of discussion on this, but we can just kind of decide where we think the Suns fit in this. And who knows, somebody might break their leg in training camp, whether it's on the Suns or otherwise, and change this. But given what we know after the offseason's over, Lakers, this is in terms of last season's finishing place.
They're even better.
The Lakers got better. I hate the Lakers, but they got better.
Yep.
That Schroeder deal was incredible for them.
Excellent deal with Schroeder, and Marc Gasol is a huge upgrade over Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee.
Yep.
Because he also can space the floor. He's a better defender than both of them. Yes, he's on his last legs. I'm not saying this is peak Marc Gasol, but he doesn't have to be, and he plays along Davis just fine.
He's a lot smarter than JaVale McGee, that's for damn sure.
And if nothing else, getting Harrell from the Clippers is addition by subtraction from the Clippers.
Yeah. I think it's not even mentioned on the piece we're reading about ins and outs, but they re-signed Markieff Morris for the league minimum, thanks to the Clippers basically subsidizing the deal by giving Marcus $64 million into their joint bank account.
FOE.
God.
FOE. Pay your brother who's not really good anymore. Pay your brother.
It's just payback from the Suns deal that they did where they split $32 million between the two of them.
Still, I think they'll miss Avery Bradley and Danny Green a little bit. Schroeder's not the defender that those two are, but not really. When you have LeBron and AD on the floor, your defense is probably going to be pretty much fine no matter what three other players are around them.
Yeah. Yep.
The Clippers didn't change a ton on the top end, although they're about to next season if this gets blown the hell up, because both Kawhi and Paul George are free agents after this year. Serge Ibaka was a good pickup for them. I think it basically covers the loss of Harrell. In some ways, Ibaka might be a better fit for them.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of covers for Harrell and JaMychal Green, who was okay for them. And they have Luke Kennard instead of Landry Shamet. So they're kind of the same team overall.
I'm not as scared about them as I at one point was, but I mean, you got to think Paul George is not going to continue playing so bad. So bad, right?
I think, yeah.
Playoff P, man. I don't know. I've thought maybe I undervalue him, but I have never found him to be the superstar that people talk about. He has good games and good stretches, but I don't see him on the same breath as Kawhi, as Giannis, as Steph, like that type of tier. He's absolutely a tier below.
Yeah, he never has been.
No.
He had that one really good run with the Pacers in a couple different playoff years, including almost taking out LeBron in one of them. But no.
Maybe on the cusp, but
8 years ago now.
Yeah, that was the closest he ever got, I think.
I don't even think mentally he's on that level.
No.
I don't think he thinks he's on that level. So those are the top two teams. I don't think there's a lot of question about that. Both of them either improved or stayed about the same. You can question if they're better in the regular season, how much load management is it going to be this year, all the COVID concerns, etc. But on paper, I think there's those two.
Probably
and then,
are 1 and 2.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see how load management goes with a shorter season. It's probably still going to be there, maybe not as pronounced. But also, they might have to pack games in a little tighter. So,
yeah, I just have no idea. I mean, how many games can you miss out of 70?
I'm actually they're my like dark horse for doing worse this year, just because you take Kawhi having such a mercurial attitude. I feel like if it starts to go bad for him, that could implode the whole thing. But as of right now, yeah, I think they're
a little bit of lingering uncertainty there. What do they look like without Doc Rivers? I don't think Doc Rivers is a phenomenal coach, but I do think he's a decent one. So is that an improvement getting rid of him? And what does it mean when they know what's looming in the future, where they've traded every single draft pick they're ever going to own to set up this team? If this team doesn't win this year,
oh yeah,
what happens? That's going to be looming. If they get off to a bad start, it could spiral.
Yep. I don't know if I trust Ty Lue. I mean, I didn't see anything crazy from him in Cleveland. I mean, yeah, he won a championship, but Coach LeBron pretty much won that championship, I think. So,
yeah, I mean, so that's your 1 and 2. Now things start to get a little bit interesting. I'm not ready to start saying the Suns are going to be number 3.
No,
but if you look at Denver, I don't know if that's the next one on there.
They are.
It is.
They got worse.
Yep.
So they still have a good core, but they were squeaked into the Western Conference Finals team that got worse.
I look at their roster and I don't know. I mean, they lost somebody like Jeremy Grant, which I totally get why they don't want to pay him. Like,
Sure.
it makes sense they didn't want to pay him that money.
Yep.
But they're kind of banking that Michael Porter Jr. becomes what Jeremy Grant was. And he looked good. I got to say, he looked really good. But I don't know if he can keep it consistent for sure for a whole season.
Well, here's my problem. Offense has never been the Nuggets' issue.
Mm-mm.
Can you defend enough with Murray, Jokic, and Michael Porter Jr. on the floor at the same time? Because you're losing their two best defenders in Jeremy Grant and Torrey Craig. They basically put Torrey Craig on whoever needed to be guarded that night on the perimeter. Now, part of that was the injuries to Barton and Harris, but I'm not saying they're worse. I think they might be. I don't know if the Suns are better than them. I think they might be, but I don't love their offseason.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't really get much. I guess.
I'm ready to still put them at 3. The safe bet is to still have them at 3, but I have some concerns. Now, Will Barton and Harris coming back, that could be.
And if Jokic really does become an actual, like, full-on MVP candidate, like top 2 MVP type of voting, and really has that crazy season, like, that'll definitely cement them up in that top 3 spot.
Speaking of volatile, Houston was 4th last year.
Yeah.
Lost Robert Covington to the Blazers, who we'll get to. Lost Austin Rivers. Nobody cares.
Nobody.
Picked up Christian Wood because Detroit had the most befuddling offseason of any team in the league when they signed Mason Plumlee away from Denver for about the same money as Christian Wood, a young up-and-comer. Now, I don't know if Wood is as good as he was for the second half of last season, but I would much rather pay him the same amount of money than Mason Plumlee. So they at least got that steal, and they get to take a flyer on DeMarcus Cousins, who, it's easy to forget, just 3 years ago was an all-star.
Yeah, a max player.
There's 2 pretty catastrophic injuries in between that 3 years. That's not nothing, but it's a free shot at it. You know, he could be good again.
I mean, they're doing the opposite of what their name is, basically. Like, they're not going up; they're free falling. Like, I can't imagine, especially if the trade is coming, the Westbrook trade is coming, the Harden trade, the both of them trades are coming. Good Lord, they could challenge for the worst record in the West.
Yeah, I don't know that they are, though. It's such a huge question mark. Like, because I think Harden wants out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're going to give it to him, though. And you have some examples. What was a recent one where it's a player demanded a trade and they're like, no, and then it worked out okay.
Kobe.
That actually is an example. Yeah, he was like, I'm done. And they're like, well, we're going to try to make it work, and then it did, and he finished his career there. But it's not good.
It was a bad sign when he turned down $50 million a year for them.
Yeah.
It's going to be a worse sign if Westbrook's athleticism continues to wane. I mean, if he's still in his head, is Russell Westbrook all megastar, I'll dunk on 5 people, and he can't even dunk, not literally, obviously, but it's going to be a huge problem, and Harden will just piece out of there, basically, mentally, until he gets traded.
The only thing that gives me pause is James Harden and crap is still probably a playoff team.
Yeah.
If he's engaged.
Yeah.
If he's not quitting on them, because he's not going to sit out to force a trade. That's way too much money to leave on the table. But I don't know if he's going to get traded just because I don't know if the destination he wants, Brooklyn, has anything Houston wants in return. You could work it up where he goes to the Sixers and you get Ben Simmons back, the type of cornerstone of a deal like that, for a guy who's averaged 35 points a game over the last 3 seasons. Now, you can talk about all the bullshit behind that, but the fact remains James Harden's a scoring machine and he's great in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
But would teams be willing to give up enough to get him? The teams he wants to go to? I don't know.
For some reason, I see this season for the Rockets being, it starts out rough, gets worse, Harden gets shut down with an injury, Russ can't carry the team, and then or the trade happens.
It's just funny to me because I don't think Brooklyn can swing a deal, even if that's where Harden wants to go. And the idea of Morey trading for him I just makes me want to laugh. I don't even, maybe he wants that, maybe he doesn't, I don't know, but
how many teams, okay, I'm being honest, I would have, if we could get James Harden on the Suns right now, I would have conflicted feelings about that. I would probably go for it because it's been so long since we made the playoffs, and like you just said, he's built to get you there. But like the way he plays, is so counter to the way a lot of teams want to play. And it's counter specifically to the Suns against the entire culture they're trying to build. So it's crazy that you would question taking a player of his caliber, but I really would. And I wonder if other teams are too.
On the way this team is constructed, which is the craziest thing about him going to Brooklyn, because you can't do James Harden on the Rockets the past 5 years on Brooklyn. KD and Kyrie will lose their minds if that were the case. So how does he change his game?
That's just it. We don't know. Is he too ingrained in this point?
Yeah.
I have no idea, because to be honest, that's not the type of player, as good as he is, that you could just trade anywhere. Kevin Durant, let's assume he's healthy. You could put Kevin Durant on any team in the league.
Yep.
And they would make it work because he's versatile enough, he's got enough skill sets to him, and he's not so ball dominant. I mean, he can be, but he doesn't have to be. You could rule out a third of the teams in the league instantly as far as would James Harden fit there.
Yep.
Like, James Harden isn't going to the Boston Celtics. They'd never trade for him anyways, but he wouldn't fit there with that roster. He wouldn't fit with the Lakers, I don't think. I mean, they'd probably make it work just because, LeBron and AD are both really good passers, but that's not a good fit roster-wise. They've spent this time building the Rockets around Harden. They've run out of almost all their assets to do so. Now all they have to show for it is the husk of Russell Westbrook and a handful of decent role players. But where is he going to go? So we'll see. That's the most volatile team on this list, because they could finish third. They could finish 14th.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know.
Yep. That's really true. Honestly, almost even as constructed. Like that, so they could change. They could lose Harden. They could lose Westbrook. Even if they kept both of them, you're still looking at quite a range of what they can do together. So yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So
OKC, we're not going to talk long about. They're the worst team in the West.
Yep.
They were 5th, but they lost 4/5 of their starting lineup.
I mean, I want to stop writing off OKC because they did that last year and the year before, but
they don't have Chris Paul.
There's no one there, and they keep trading away their players for picks.
I mean, I love Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the guy probably the most untradeable guy in that roster. I'm sure Sam Presti was yeah, no chance. We want your draft picks. We'll give you whoever you want, not Shai, and that's it.
Which is what he should do. Now we'll see if that pans out for them. It's almost too many assets, and some teams say Philadelphia or Boston have not been able to really get the most out of that draft capital they built over time. This is almost too many picks to ever put on a roster. So I mean, if they can swing it into a deal for somebody, maybe it works out. I think it's the right call given the situation they were in, but I don't know if it's going to pan out the way they expect.
Well, and I think it's an interesting. Dave brought this up. A pick, having lots of picks is like you're paying multiple pulls of a lottery machine. I wonder if someone has done the statistics and is if you have 5 top 10 picks, the odds of you landing someone really good are 1 out of 5. So you're just increasing your chances. I don't know if that's what's going on or what, but yeah, it's a lot of assets, and
it's a lot of assets. It's a lot of chances. It's a lot of chances that the teams they've got draft picks for end up being terrible, like the Clippers potentially in the future, the Rockets potentially with all the draft picks they have. But I mean, you look at somebody like Philadelphia, which just basically tried to accumulate draft stock and use their own crappy draft picks. Out of all of the top 3 picks Philadelphia had, they got 2 guys out of it, basically.
Yep.
That's
2
it.
out of 10 years of tanking, basically.
Now 2 really good players.
Yeah.
But
2
not
really,
necessarily good together.
2 really good flawed players.
Yep.
Yeah.
They didn't even get a Giannis style player out of it.
No.
They got 2 top 15-ish guys out of it, which is not nothing. And maybe they'll continue to build around them going forward, but it's not exactly a slam dunk. It's not a ringing endorsement of trust in the process.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The Jazz are the same. They're just the same.
But
Bogdanovich is healthy, but
by being the same, they're worse.
I think Gobert's lingering contract issue, like I talked about in the last episode, could be a problem for them. We'll see.
Yeah.
But as constructed, I mean, they're on pace for 4 to 7 in the West,
which is right where they were. I mean, the middle of the West was such a cluster last year. Yeah. I mean, 7th place and 3rd place are basically the same team, same record essentially at the end. So 3rd place, 7th place, whatever. It was just kind of all mixed in there. But yeah, I mean, they're basically right where they were. And with the improvement of other teams, the potential improvement of Portland, Dallas, Phoenix, by staying the same, they got jumped, I think.
Probably.
I hope so.
Me too.
I want to like them, but I probably won't for a while.
I hope Mitchell stabs Gobert. Just shanks him in a parking lot somewhere. I don't know why. I mean, I'd have a few reasons why, but
That would knock out both of them for the season, actually.
That's-
only if he
true.
got found out to be the murderer. I mean, if
That's true.
if it's just Gobert, the defense collapses. But I don't have any ill will towards Mitchell for the most part, other than people who think he's better than Booker.
Which is
yeah,
not.
that's not his fault.
He's absolutely not. And that's not even homerism. Dallas was 7th. They didn't change a ton. Josh Richardson's a good fit for them. Kind of nice to be able to pick him up from the Sixers. Losing Seth Curry will hurt them a little bit. Beyond that, it's pretty much the same. They didn't have Dwight Powell in the bubble. It's really about Kristaps Porzingis to me.
Yep.
I don't think Luka's going to take another step like last year. Maybe he gets a smidge better. I'm not going to say he can't. But it's about Kristaps Porzingis. Without a second star there, I don't know how Dallas is better than 6th or 7th.
And if he is just an injury-prone guy and can't keep that up, they can't improve. Kristaps is the key as far as where they go. I mean, Luka's obviously the engine of the team, but Kristaps is that second guy that has to be respected and will put them up in the top tier of the West. And if he can't play or doesn't play well, they don't have star power.
Yeah, I'm not super worried about Dallas. It could be we beat them. We beat them in a nail biter, and I'm taking all my stuff from the bubble, which is like not a good idea because it's 8 games long. But beat them in the bubble by a little bit, and then we absolutely crushed them. So I'm not that worried about them, especially Kristaps Porzingis. Even if he's healthy, one, because I just don't know how good he is anymore. But two, even when healthy, he is prone to being unhealthy at like the drop of a hat. So they don't scare me that much.
Nope.
I really want to say Portland sucks, and I just don't think they do.
No, they're going to be good again.
We've talked about them. I don't even really dislike them that much. I don't know why I dislike them as much as I do. But
I like them more after watching Portlandia, and they keep being in episodes.
I don't have the hate for Portland. I love Dame. I love watching him play. He hurt me badly in the bubble watching him. That like the 3-pointer that went 35 feet in the air. Every year that's going to get another 5 feet higher in the story.
yeah, it's going to be the moon eventually.
I went 57 feet in the air and then fell through.
The fish was this big.
And so, but I mean, it hurt in the bubble watching them win game after game when we had a real shot at making the playoffs. But I love Dame. Their team is, I don't know, I like a lot of the guys on their team. They lost a guy I hate, Trevor Ariza, off the team, which is great. Hassan Whiteside.
Because of
Yeah, they got better because of losing Whiteside and Ariza. They got Rocco, which I think is a great pickup for them. And they're getting Nurkic back, which is a huge thing for them, I think.
Yeah, we saw him even 80% in the playoffs, that he's a big factor in what they do.
Yep.
Especially because of his passing ability. One of the best passing centers in the league. It's kind of weird that Denver had both him and Jokic at the same time for a while there.
Yeah, I always got them confused in my head, by the way.
I mean, they're weird too, though. They could be as high as 3
I think so.
and as low as 7. I don't know. I don't see them going out of 8. They're built to be so consistent.
Yep. I mean, Dame drives that engine. He just does.
He's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Can he be good enough to drive them to the 3rd seed? I mean, I'd almost rather pick them ahead of Denver.
Yeah.
But that feels like such a stretch to me that it's like, God, I don't know.
Yep.
All right, so let's rattle off some teams I know the Suns are better than. 9th was Memphis. We might have been better than Memphis last year, everybody being healthy. We're certainly better than them now.
Is JJJ coming back this season?
I don't know.
I don't think so, and that hurts them a lot.
I mean, anybody who's got injuries at the end of last season is going to be at risk. I already saw today that Kemba Walker's out till January.
Yep.
Which is a 5th of the season.
Yeah.
You know, so like that is going to matter, especially in a shortened season. Again, that's why the load management thing, it's going to happen, but if you're already missing 12 games in the season, you don't have a ton of time to dick around. You can sit your stars like 8 games, but you can't sit them 20.
Mm-hmm.
So Memphis, don't care.
Yep.
Maybe they're a playoff team. If their young guys really step up, maybe they're an 8 seed. I don't know. The Spurs, I don't care. They're old. Nobody cares. They missed the playoffs once. They're going to miss them again. See you later, San Antonio. Go fuck yourself. Sacramento, don't understand their offseason. I don't get it.
I mean, picking up Halliburton in the draft was probably a good pick for them. I mean, if Bagley is not a complete bust, that's going to help them. But, I mean, they lost Bogdan, which is a bit, I don't know, he was good for them. They're not climbing out of the depths of the West.
What's scary to me, though, is like all these teams, Memphis, you just said, Sacramento, New Orleans,
Minnesota.
They could all be better, really, than the Suns, than all these teams could be good if certain things go right.
Mm-hmm. But they all have these big question marks to me where I'm confident being like that. The Suns are better.
Yeah.
New Orleans, Zion, 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 Zion. But they picked up Eric Bledsoe, so I don't give a fuck.
I mean, they replaced Jrue Holiday, which is one of my favorite players in the league, for Eric Bledsoe, one of my least favorite players in the league. So,
yeah, not interested.
No.
Ingram's good, but also not better than Booker. And they'll be a threat for like 9-10. And again, best case scenario, they could sneak in the playoffs, but I don't expect the Suns to sneak into the playoffs, and we'll get to that in a second. Timberwolves, Rubio's a nice pickup for them. It's cool to see him go back to where he started. We know D'Angelo Russell and Cat are both good. I don't know how they're going to play defense. I don't know how they're going to roster a bench. So they're pretty easily the 14th worst team in the West to me.
Their top draft pick stated before the draft that he'd rather be playing football. So that's fun.
Seems good.
Yeah.
Good start.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being as good as Cat and being one of the worst teams in the West. But then that's what Booker had to deal with for years, so maybe I can't imagine it.
The Cat gets a good reputation, though, and Book has been shit on his entire career for some reason.
That's true.
And I don't mean this to sound negative, but Cat's going to get even more wiggle room because his mom died of COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Which is a heart-wrenching story. It sucks for him. I feel really terrible, but that's going to buy him even more goodwill with the media. Then they're not going to be harsh on him because they're not expected to be good. But I'm not sure why Booker gets that same hate because at no point in the last 5 seasons until last year did anybody say, yeah, the Suns are going to win more than 25 games.
Yeah, right.
Never happened.
Uh-huh.
And then the Warriors, we talked about in the last episode. Because
they could be good too.
They
Except
could still.
Clay.
Like, that's the thing. Or they could be terrible. I think they're going to be wildly inconsistent, probably.
I just don't understand the shooting. Because now all of a sudden you're starting Andrew Wiggins, a historically mediocre three-point shooter, Draymond Green, a historically below-average three-point shooter, and I guess Wiseman. I'm not sure exactly who's going to start for them, but outside of Curry, because Oubre's who shoots? Who can space the floor? Now Curry demands a ton of space himself. Like you have to respect him out to 30 feet, but who else? If you double Steph Curry, who's going to beat you?
I can only figure that Steve Kerr is a good enough offensive coach to work around that, but they're not going to be the Warriors where, I think they're going to be a good team and probably a playoff team, but losing Clay God, that ruined them.
Yeah.
He was so integral to everything they did.
Well, here's my bottom line now, because we'll just speed up to the end here since we have to record soccer and Cody's here, spoiler alert. I think the Suns are going to finish 4th. That's the limb I'm going out on. Shaun, who's more optimistic than me, is probably not prepared to go there yet. I'm going to say they're going to finish 4th. Now, I would not have said that pre-Klay Thompson injury.
Mm-hmm.
I would have had the Warriors penciled in as 3rd or 4th-ish, most likely. Though there were still some question marks going into that just about, is Klay 100%, etc. Like, it wouldn't have been a lock, but I would have probably put them ahead of us. I don't now, and I don't put any other team except maybe Denver or Portland, and I'm not prepared to put both. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say 4th.
So here's what's crazy in looking at Vegas odds. I just pulled up the win totals odds. Lakers, Clippers, obviously 1-2. The Suns, according to Vegas odds, are going to finish 7th in the West with an over-under of 38.5. Would you guys go over or under, remembering that it's a shortened season?
38.5 means 38.5 and 31.5?
I believe so, yes. 72. 72 games, I believe.
So 38.5 projects to like 46 wins or something?
Mm-hmm.
I'd go over.
Shaun?
Assuming the schedule is going to be unbalanced. That's the rumor that we're hearing now, is it's not just going to be a bunch of things against your division rivals, which would mean a lot of Lakers and Clippers. Supposedly that's not going to be the case, and there's still Eastern Conference games in there too. Yeah, I'd go over.
I think I would go over, even though I'm not. So I think the Suns could. Realistically, they could finish 3rd. Realistically, they can finish anything, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah.
Could finish 10th.
They could finish 3rd. I would love to see them finish 4th, and I do think it is possible. I don't know if it's years of just being so beat down. I can't go higher. Realistically, my pick would be 6th. 5th or 6th. I was really on the border of both of those, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I might have homerism. I might have too much excitement over the fact that we actually can talk about this realistically and not have some pipe dream of maybe Luis Scola is going to be a great player this year and Marcin Gortat's really going to have a standout. Like, we have real basketball players now, and I can see us competing for the 4th spot and maybe even the 3rd spot. Like, Chris Paul stays healthy. Devin Booker takes that next step into the all-NBA tier. Jay Crowder continues to be Miami Jay Crowder, and Ayton becomes borderline all-star. We're top 3, guys.
I'm going to lock it in at 5th. You help me there, because I'm trying to put myself in the mind of like an outside observer, and I'm like, really, without the homers and that, we have a good team. Mm-hmm. Like, we just do. It's easy to be the optimistic when we're like, are we going to get 20 wins? No, guys. I'm going to go out on a limb and say 23. It's like, who the fuck cares anymore at that point? Now that it's like serious, I'm like, okay, I would love to be 3rd, 4th, 5th, 4th. I'm going to say 5th. I'm going to go 5th.
I'm going to say 4th with 40 wins is my guess.
Oh, we got to do wins.
Exactly the number I like.
Yep.
So you
it's only 10 games over 500.
Yeah.
You both like 40.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Is it a 70 game season or 72 game season?
I think it's 70.
Okay, so yeah, 40 and 30. Yeah. If it's
you can't both be 40.
But
okay.
I like 40.
Well, I mean, you guys have to find some way to settle it, but
41.
Okay, Chris is going 41. I'll go 42, even though I have us at a lower seed.
All right. You're hedging your bets.
Yeah.
I think it's all going to click. I don't even think 4th is a best case scenario.
No,
that's why I'm
don't
comfortable
either.
picking it. And there's obviously a ton of question marks. All it's going to take is one outbreak, and then any team could be thrown way the hell off kilter this season, including the Suns.
Yep.
If Chris Paul gets COVID and misses, weeks or months because he's having a hard time with it or whatever, then everything goes out the window. Because Point Booker, even with a better roster, is a lot to ask of him for a full season.
Yep.
If LeBron James gets COVID, I'd put the Suns ahead of them because that roster with AD sucks.
Yep.
But those are just the things that we can't possibly predict at this point. So we're just going to assume that nobody gets anything and we play this out with full rosters. Yep. And I think the Suns in this system, with this youth in a season that's going to demand more than a normal regular season, are positioned well to do 4th.
It is 72 games, by the way.
72, okay.
72 games, yep. So 40 and 32.
42. 43.
All right. I'm still going to go 40, but I like it.
You fucking pessimist.
Okay.
I went from the highest to the lowest. How'd this happen?
Let's lock those in. We might tweak them right before the start of the season. We can see what happens in all the training camps and whatnot. Because again, if Harden is traded, that changes things. If all these things could happen. But that's where we're at right now. And training camp is only like 2 weeks. So even as a one-off on the side, we won't do a whole other episode previewing the season. But we'll lock in our final picks, placement number of wins, and then we'll put dinner on the line at a restaurant that we can't go to.
Yeah. Kendall could break up with Booker and really devastate him.
Kendall Marshall could shoot Devin Booker in a parking lot. There's a lot of things that could happen, folks. That's the end of this episode. Thank you for listening to our Suns preview. As you can tell, we're excited. Just feeling excitement, even if it all goes wrong, is nice. It feels something.
I'm excited about being excited. Exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in between episodes. You can find us on our website, objectionnetwork.com, or on youtube.com/objectionnetwork for new videos 7 days a week. We'll see you next time.